What makes a VR game juicy? Typical games got your typical juice. Games make sure they have a fun responsiveness when you perform your base mechanic. They make explosions huge, they pause on action, they make satisfying sounds and shake the screen, lag the camera, flash affordance colors, and exaggerate knockback. However, a lot of these don't work in VR. Fun sound effects, responsive controls, great affordance, and flashing lights all work great in VR. Just play Beat Saber for 5 seconds and you'll know what I mean. But let's imagine a VR game that adds juice with pausing on intense actions, screen shakes, lags the camera, and doubles down on the flashing lights. Yeah. So I guess that's it. VR games only get half the juice. The end. Goodbye. Wait, you're still here? What, do you think there could be some new juice flavors that are specific to VR, that developers aren't limited to half the toolset? Interesting. I know you like Skyrim, but let's admit it, that the VR edition is lackluster. It should be the coolest game that's ever been made, but they're really missing on some important things that make VR actually fun. First off, the menu system is awful. I'd like to pose that one of the juice abilities that VR has that other systems don't is an immersive menu system. In Skyrim VR, you just really feel like you're using a keyboard in the dark, trying to find your certain items. It's not intuitive and it's just clunky, and it really breaks the flow of the game. Also, in Skyrim, you have weapons, you can pick up swords, but the sword fighting mechanic just feels like you're a 4-year-old wildly swinging a sword until your enemies fall over dead. Something that should have been a really engrossing RPG turned into a bit of a dry combat simulator, with the exception of shooting a bow. That's exceedingly fun. When you picked up things in the original Skyrim, it added a lot of immersion to the game. Every game object was something you could interact with. And now that principle has been carried over to VR in a lot of games, because a lot of games you actually get to interact with pretty much every item in that Bethesda style. However, Skyrim VR misses out what makes interactable objects actually feel good to interact with, because all you do is hover your hand over the item and click a button, and now it goes magically into your pack. Let's look at another game with a lot of interactable objects, Half-Life Alyx, for example. When you pick up an object, you can put it in your pocket, you can put it in your backpack, you can put it in your watch pack. There's a lot of things you can do with an item, and that's just fun and it's intuitive. And I know that everyone who's played Half-Life Alyx spends the first few minutes of the game just messing around with the crap laying around her apartment and drawing on the barker board. Not to mention, later in the game, you walk by a piano and you just play it. The game just is naturally fun to interact with. Which leads me to the next item. Immersion in VR games comes from the, not gonna say realisticness, but the intuitiveness of messing around in the VR world. Look no further than Unreal's engine to understand just a world where you have the basic VR mechanics. Here we go, it's Unreal Engine's basic VR world. And when you walk up to a block, you pick it up, they were weightless. You pick them up at a random spot. And when you throw them, you have no idea where they're gonna go. You have no idea even where your hand's gonna be when you pick it up. That feels like you're playing with nothing, like you're just imagining there's a block there. However, looking back to Half-Life Alyx, there's a simulated weight to an item. When you pick it up, there's physics to it. You can actually torque a bottle inside of a crate and lift the crate with a bottle. That feels good. There's actual feedback to the weight of the item. There's a feedback to what's going to happen with the item, and you even know where your hands are on the item. So when you throw it or interact with it, it doesn't surprise you. Half-Life Alyx is a big example of VR juice done right, because that was Valve's goal, is to show us a game with VR done right. So let's talk about the sound effects and voiceover in a game similar to it called Arizona Sunshine. You walk around shooting zombies. Should be fun, right? Well, the voice inside your head is absolutely loud and annoying. The very first thing that happens in the game is your character starts talking and you're just like, what the heck? Get out of my head. It's so frustrating. But in Half-Life Alyx, the same thing happens because your character is talking and not you. You're not a silent protagonist. However, it's not annoying. You feel like you're listening in on the conversation. They let your brain just let it happen. Positioning of sound effects is extremely important in VR because VR is the only medium where something can happen behind you and you actually turn around to look. Whoa!
hear that?
Yeah. Let's get this shotgun and get out of here.
Now, we're talking about sound, let's talk about Beat Saber. Some of the really cool aesthetics that sell Beat Saber is its ambient neon glows over the overall dark and blue feeling. The color really pops, the stage dances around you. This level of light detail, it just wouldn't impress you as much if you were watching it on a monitor. Inside of a headset, however, it's engrossing, it's gripping. VR headsets play with light in a different way than your monitor ever could. Back to Skyrim, here's a good thing about it. When you're walking around at night or in a cave or in a dungeon, there is a bit of a new eeriness to it because you don't know what's around the next corner. But that's taken to a whole new level in Half-Life because when you're outside, you really feel outside. There's a brightness that permeates everything, and when you feel safe and secure, and that's contrasted that when you go deep into the sewers or the subway, it gets darker and darker until eventually you have nothing but a flashlight that flashes light as you shoot zombies and you realize that you're scared and alone and surrounded, and it's great. There is no comforting bezel of the monitor to let you remember this is just a game. There's only a slash of light and a zombie's leg that you can see, and then it disappears into nothingness, and you are in the space that it's in. The spatial awareness in VR is just unreal and different, and light can really help you capitalize on that. Not just adding light, but taking it away. Let's look at a lesser known game called Scanner Sombre. This game isn't a big hit, but it does something really, really well. It uses the fact that in real life, you're actually blind when you have a VR headset on. Then ask you to wander around the world, but you can only kind of scan the world like a bat using sonar, not necessarily see the world in real time. You can kind of just pick up new pictures of it. And it's exciting because you never know what you're going to find. You never know how the cave's going to look. As you go deeper and deeper into the cave, you start finding creepy things, and sometimes when you scan the creepy thing again, it's not there. That's exciting. That really capitalizes on that natural sense of space and awareness and how it's taken away from you and given back. That is some juice that VR can play with. Another sense that VR can capitalize on more than other games is vertigo, the feeling of being scared of heights that happens the best in the climb. When you're climbing, you really feel you're clenching your muscles as if you're pulling yourself up somewhere. Looking down is part of the game, trying to convince yourself that you're not actually going to fall. You look down, your feet aren't on the ground. You actually stress your arm muscles as you pull yourself around the mountain face. And when you reach the top, you look around the landscape through the screen door effect, taking it in. Because you feel like you deserve it, because you put energy into it, because you were scared you were gonna fall at certain points, and you really enjoy that immersive, that inherent goal. Fun fact about the climb, it never tells you, hey, the purpose of this game is to get to the top. It just says, here's how to climb. Let's take a look back from the sense immersion and go with the power trip. Let's look at VR juice in Robo Recall. This is one of the biggest, strongest VR titles, and it comes with the Oculus Touch on launch. And what makes this game so good is the expected responsiveness. When you grab something, it latches to your hand. When you throw something, it flies away. When you shoot a gun, you can aim through the sights and hit something, and there's nothing in your way. The game isn't cumbersome, it's empowering. You're able to navigate through the world very fast. You're able to smash robots together, catch bullets, and throw them back. Everything is to help pull you into the action, where you're not worried about how slowly to grab something or how delicately you need to grab something to maneuver around small corners as your character's hitbox is causing issues. Instead, there's no delay between your actions and the punch. When you punch, it punches. When you grab, you grab. When you shoot, you've already shot. This is an example of VR interactive that's not necessarily realistic, but it's tactile and responsive. You're able to perform the same actions over and over again automatically. You're able to spin around, catch a gun, throw one off a robot's head, and keep shooting without having to think about it very much. It's very physical and it's very exciting. Talking about physical actions, in VR, think about Super Hot. The game strips away all the realism and immersion, and it strives to make you feel like an action hero. And it does that as you're able to plan out every move, but you see yourself whipping around and shooting people and punching the legs out from under them. But yet you feel like an action hero as you plan out each move. Another thing that VR does better than other games is to get your heart moving. You get a dopamine rush of exercise when you're playing the video game. I'd like to argue that exercise is one of the VR juices. That's why Beat Saber is so addictive. It doesn't just use traditional juice that you see in earlier game styles, but with Beat Saber you're actually moving to the music. It's organic in a way that makes your brain actually get excitement from the game. While this may not be the exact use you want for every game, for example in Half-Life Alyx, if I were constantly moving and running, there would be no way I could play for the length of time that the game expects you to play. But for certain games, tapping into the exercise, the natural dopamine coming out of your brain is something to consider. Something I mentioned earlier is screen shakes, pauses, and camera lags. Something they're meant to do is to give you an extra affordance, an extra feeling like you're in the game and that your game is reacting to your actions. In VR, I think a lot of that comes naturally, so we don't have to fake it with screen shakes and camera moving. VR is juiciest when the world reacts to your actions and your senses. It doesn't have to look realistic or behave realistically, but it does need to be intuitive. Your base action in VR is movement, and just like Mario, that movement needs to feel good. Sound is around you, so surprise your player with where the sound's coming from. And you're blind when you have a VR headset on, so let the light slash. Play with how much visual information you're giving. Sometimes overstimulate, then other times understimulate. As the player's playing, give them a reason to clench their muscles, to move around, to duck, to feel a physical interaction with the world. These are juices that VR has that other mediums cannot serve. Thanks for watching. Steven and I are working on a VR game. We're taking our time and really trying to look at what makes games special. And so one of the things we want to do on this channel is invite you into that conversation with us. So thanks so much for watching. Like if you want more videos like this one. We'll see you next time. Oh man, that was gonna taste way worse.